Thanks for tuning in. When considering Ford muscle cars, the discussion invariably centers on the Ford Mustang. However, the Mustang is not the only legendary muscle car that has rolled off Ford's production lines in the 70s. In this episode, we'll review the quickest Ford muscle cars from 1971. Stay tuned, and be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel as we get into the countdown. Number 8. Ford Maverick Grabber, 8.1 seconds. The 1971 Ford Maverick Grabber was manufactured as a sportier, performance-oriented version of the Ford Maverick. The model was originally introduced in 1969 as an affordable, compact alternative to larger muscle cars like the Mustang. The 1971 Ford Maverick Grabber was manufactured during a time when the muscle car market was shifting. It came with specific cosmetic upgrades, such as dual racing stripes, a unique hood with a simulated scoop, and grabber badging, which gave it a more aggressive look. The Maverick Grabber boasted an independent front suspension with coil springs and semi-elliptic rear leaf springs, which gave it decent handling for its class. It could be equipped with several engine options, but the 302 cubic inch V8 engine was the real deal. This engine produced 210 horsepower and 296 pound-feet of torque, giving enthusiasts much better acceleration and speed. The 302 was mated to a 3-speed manual transmission, which helped the car accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 8.1 seconds. Number 7. Ford Galaxy 500 Windsor V8, 8 seconds. The 1971 Ford Galaxy 500, particularly with the Windsor V8 engine, was part of Ford's strategy to continue offering full-size vehicles that balance both comfort and performance. The Galaxy line had been around since the late 1950s, but by the early 1970s, performance sedans were becoming increasingly popular, and Ford aimed to keep the Galaxy relevant in this shifting market. A complete redesign, including a horizontal wraparound front bumper with a massive vertical center section, much in the vein of concurrent Pontiacs, was offered for 1971. The Galaxy 500's suspension system featured a heavy-duty coil spring design in the front and rear, providing a comfortable ride for regular driving but also capable of handling the power from the V8 engine. Unlike the previous models, the engine lineup saw some changes for 71, as the 351 cubic inch V8 was now standard equipment on all full-size Fords. The 351 featured a cast iron block and heads, overhead valves, and a hydraulic camshaft. It was fitted with a 4-barrel carburetor, which provided an efficient fuel-air mixture to produce 285 horsepower and 355 pound-feet of torque. The 1971 Ford Galaxy 500 came with a 4-speed manual transmission, which helped the car go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 8 seconds flat. Number 6. Ford Ranchero GT, 7.5 seconds. The 1971 Ford Ranchero GT with the 429 engine was the pinnacle of power and performance for the Ranchero lineup. Built on the same platform as the Ford Torino, the Ranchero GT was a unique blend of utility and muscle car performance, and the 429 V8 engine made it a serious contender on the streets. The car offered a stylish and powerful alternative to traditional trucks. Though not as aerodynamically refined as dedicated race cars, its design helped it manage airflow better than most utility vehicles. The model utilized heavy-duty suspension components to support both the powerful engine and its practical utility features. The 429 Cobra jet engine used in this model was one of Ford's most revered big-block V8s, known for its immense power and torque. The engine featured 4-bolt main bearings, a cast iron block, and overhead valves, with a high-lift camshaft and high-flow cylinder heads. A 4-barrel carburetor and the Ram air induction system ensured the massive engine had enough air and fuel to produce 370 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque. Ford offered the Ranchero GT with a 4-speed manual transmission, which enabled it to accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 7.5 seconds. Number 5. Ford Thunderbird Thunderjet, 7.4 seconds. Due to the shifted market demands in the 70s, Ford evolved the Thunderbird from its early days as a sporty 2-seater into a larger, more luxurious vehicle. This model, especially the trim with the Jet 429 V8, was designed to rival other muscle cars of the time, such as the Buick Riviera and Oldsmobile Toronado. The 1971 Thunderbird had a larger, more imposing design with long, sleek lines. The broad grille, hidden headlights, and sharp-edged body added wind resistance capability for a decent highway performance. The Thunderbird's suspension was designed for a smooth, comfortable ride rather than razor-sharp handling. Ford employed a front independent suspension with coil springs and a rear suspension using a live axle with leaf springs. Under the hood was the Thunderjet 429 cubic inch V8 engine. It featured a 4-barrel carburetor, large high-flow cylinder heads, forged pistons and hydraulic lifters, and a dual exhaust system. The 429 produced 360 horsepower and 480 pound-feet torque. It was mated to a 3-speed automatic transmission that helped the Thunderbird sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 7.4 seconds. Are you ready for our top 4 quickest Ford muscle cars from 1971? Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. It really helps us create more episodes. Number 4. Ford Torino GT, 7.1 seconds. 1971 was the best year for the Torino as Ford decided to drop the Fairlane and Falcon model names. The Torino GT was offered as a 2-door sports coupe and convertible, and the styling was mostly unchanged, save for minor revisions to the grilles. The GT model was designed to compete against rivals like the Chevelle SS and Dodge Charger by offering a balance of performance, power, and style. The 1971 Ford Torino's long, sweeping, fastback roofline design helped with airflow, making it more aerodynamic than earlier models. The front had an independent suspension with coil springs and unequal length control arms, while the rear acquired leaf springs with a solid axle. This model also boasted front and rear sway bars that reduced body roll when cornering at high speeds. Under the hood was a 351 cubic inch Cleveland V8 engine, one of the most celebrated engines in the muscle car era. It featured a unique hinted valve design in the cylinder heads and a compression ratio of 9.5 to 1. Its 4-barrel carburetor helped produce 285 horsepower and 370 pound-feet of torque. This engine was mated to a 4-speed manual transmission, which made the Torino GT capable of respectable performance numbers. It moved from a standstill of 60 miles per hour in 7.1 seconds. Number 3. Ford Mustang Mach 1, 6.5 seconds. The 1971 Ford Mustang Mach 1 429 Super Cobra Jet was designed to compete with other high-performance American muscle cars of the early 1970s like the Chevy Camaro Z28, Plymouth Barracuda, and Dodge Challenger. It was arguably the largest Mustang ever produced as it was designed to accommodate the larger big block engines like the 429 Cobra Jet. The new body had a longer, wider stance, which helped with stability and road presence and made the car heavier than earlier Mustangs. The 429 SCJ came with a front chin spoiler and a rear deck lid spoiler, which reduced lift and added downforce. The car used an independent front suspension with coil springs and unequal length control arms for decent handling and stability. The 429 cubic inch Super Cobra Jet V8 engine featured a 4-barrel carburetor, which provided the fuel and air mixture needed to produce massive power. It had a more aggressive solid lifter camshaft, which allowed the engine to rev higher, and an engine oil cooler that helped manage the increased heat generated by the high-performance engine during sustained high-speed driving or racing. The 429 V8 was officially rated at 375 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque, although actual output was likely closer to 400 horsepower. This engine was mated to a 4-speed manual transmission that enabled the car to sprint and reach 60 miles per hour in just 6.5 seconds. Number 2. Ford Torino GT, at 5.8 seconds. The 1971 Ford Torino GT 429 Cobra Jet was one of Ford's premier muscle cars during the early 1970s. The 71 Torino was designed to compete directly with other muscle cars like the Chevelle SS 454, Dodge Charger RT, and Plymouth Roadrunner. The bodywork was reshaped with aerodynamics in mind, featuring sleek lines and a wide stance that gave it a muscular appearance. It also came in several body styles, including a fastback, coupe, and convertible, with the fastback being the most popular among performance enthusiasts. The 429 Cobra Jet had a front chin spoiler and optional rear deck lid wing, which helped reduce lift at high speeds and added to the aggressive styling. The front featured an independent coil spring suspension with unequal length control arms, while the rear suspension used a live axle with leaf springs, typical of muscle cars of the era. Under the hood was a 429 cubic inch Cobra Jet V8 engine that featured a large Holley 4-barrel carburetor, high-flow cylinder heads, forged pistons, a more aggressive solid lifter camshaft, and a special engine oil cooler. The 429 Cobra Jet was officially rated at 370 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque, but gearheads claim it was capable of more than that. It was mated to a 4-speed manual transmission that helped the car move from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.8 seconds. Number 1. Ford Mustang Boss 351, 5.8 seconds. The 1971 Mustang Boss 351 was one of the best-performing Mustangs of the era as it was heavily reworked and restyled. In 1971, the Boss 351 was set to fill the gap left by the outgoing Boss 302 and Boss 429 models, which had been phased out due to changing emission standards and insurance costs. This was in response to competitors like the Chevy Camaro Z28, Plymouth Barracuda, and Dodge Challenger. Ford mounted the functional shaker hood scoop directly to the engine on the Boss 351 for improved performance. A front chin spoiler and rear deck spoiler were also included to help reduce lift at higher speeds. The front used an independent coil spring suspension with unequal length control arms, while the rear had a live axle with leaf springs that provided a solid, durable setup for racing. The 351 cubic inch Cleveland V8 roared under the hood, featuring a 4-barrel carburetor, large ports, and valves. Additionally, it had a solid lifter camshaft, forged pistons, a high-strength crankshaft, and heavy-duty connecting rods. The Boss 351 was officially rated at 330 horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque, though actual output was likely higher, with some estimates placing it closer to 350 horsepower. This engine was mated to a 4-speed manual transmission that enabled the car to pull from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.8 seconds. Thanks for watching today's episode. Which of these muscle cars is your favorite? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, if you haven't already yet, please subscribe to our channel and don't forget to click the like button and hit the bell icon to be notified when we release new episodes.